is the story of two friends, Mr. Boon and Mr. Goon. See what happens one day when they meet. Two friends, Mr. Boon and Mr. Goon, who cannot hear very well, setting a street. Mr. Boon is going to the market with a bag. He sees Mr. Goon. Mr. Boon says,
"How are you, Mr. Goon?"
Mr. Goon says,
"Oh, Mr. Boon, how are you? What are you saying? Cows are few?"
"Where are the cows?"
Mr. Boon shouting,
"I did not say cows are few. I said, how are you?"
Mr. Goon says,
"I am fine. But why are you shouting in my ear? Where are you taking this bag?"
Mr. Boon says,
"I am going to the market to buy some rice."
Mr. Goon says,
"Mice? Why do you want mice in your house? They will nibble at everything."
Mr. Boon says,
"I said rice, not mice."
Mr. Goon says,
"Oh, ice? You are going to buy ice?"
Mr. Boon says, getting angry,
"Mr. Goon, please excuse me. I must go now. I have to go to the market."
Mr. Goon says,
"What? You have to bring a basket? Now, why do you need a basket?"
Mr. Boon says,
"Oh, my God, I am going."
starts running. Mr. Goon says,
"Mr. Boon, please wait."
They both run out.
Sheikh Chili. Sheikh Chili was a simpleton. He lived in a small village on the banks of river Panjam. His house was a favorite meeting place of all the animals and children of that village. He treated both man and animal with the same respect and kindness. Once, a limping dog entered his house. Sheikh Chili treated him in the same manner as he would treat his friend. He asked the dog to sit down, got him a bowl full of milk, and then tried to examine his injured leg. The dog felt so uncomfortable with Sheikh Chili's hospitality that he quickly ran away. Poor Sheikh Chili! He had only wanted to be kind and hospitable. There is another incident that goes like this. One day, Sheikh Chili went to bathe in the river. He put all his clothes in a neat pile on the bank and gingerly put his legs in the water. Immediately, he felt that his neck was getting wet. Sheikh Chili was puzzled. How could the water move from my feet to my neck so quickly? I have not even entered the river fully. He pulled his legs out of the water. 5 minutes later, he put his legs back in the water to see if the magic would repeat. Oh yes! He felt the wetness on his neck again. He was impressed by the swift action of the water on his body. He jumped into the river, extremely excited, and had a quick bath. That evening, he narrated the entire incident to his friend. His friend smiled and remarked, "I saw Tommy the dog licking your neck when you sat there with your legs in the water." Poor Sheikh Chili, he was so naive. Every Thursday, Sheikh Chili went to the market to buy vegetables and fruits. The market was quite far off, and the villagers had to pass through a thick forest. They always travelled in groups and avoided returning late from the market. One day, Sheikh Chilli got delayed and had to return alone. All the other people of his village had left early. Halfway into the forest, his friend Mangu Ram remembered that when left alone, Sheikh Chilli almost certainly landed himself in some trouble. Concerned for his friend, he immediately rushed back to look for Sheikh Chilli. After walking back for nearly half a kilometer, he saw his friend sitting in front of a fierce-looking bear, talking to it and feeding it carrots and other vegetables from his basket. The animal had a puzzled expression on his face. Perhaps it was wondering how to attack someone who was so nice and polite to him. There came a time in Sheikh Chilli's life when he had no work and no money to buy things for himself. He often borrowed from his friends. Finally, even his friends stopped lending him money or giving him things. One evening, Sheikh Chilli was sitting in front of his house, feeling sorry for himself. There was not even a single grain in his house. Hungry and lonely, his mind began to work overtime. He decided to rob the rich merchant's storeroom for some grain. The merchant's store was always stacked with grain and other food items. That night, when the clock struck 12, Sheikh Chilli set out on his task of robbing the merchant. He succeeded in sneaking into the storeroom. There, he packed enough grain for himself. Just as he was about to move out, his eyes fell on a bowl full of milk. Sheikh Chilli was very hungry and could not resist the temptation of making delicious porridge for himself. Having decided this, Sheikh Chilli set about the task of cooking the porridge. He lit the stove, and after putting the pan with milk and cereal on it, he sat down to stir the porridge occasionally. It so happened that the servant's daughter was sleeping nearby. When the porridge was just half done, the girl stretched herself, and her hand, with her palm open, came in front of Sheikh Chilli's eyes. Thinking that the girl was asking for some porridge, he grumbled, "Can't you wait for some time? The porridge is not yet cooked." Incidentally, the girl withdrew her hand at the same time. Everything was quiet for a while. After about 10 minutes, she again stretched her hand. This time, Sheikh Chilli mumbled angrily because the porridge was still not ready. However, when the action was repeated for the third time, Sheikh Chilli became quite annoyed. He shouted, "I told you to wait for some time. If you are so hungry, here, take this porridge." Saying this, he dropped a spoonful of hot porridge on the girl's outstretched hand. Needless to say, the girl's screams brought the whole house into the kitchen, and Sheikh Chilli was caught and put behind bars. His desire of eating the porridge remained unfulfilled. Perhaps it is better to be smart than simple.
The Cap Seller and the Monkeys, the new generation. Red caps and blue caps, pretty little white caps, green caps and yellow caps, polka dotted caps, striped caps, Come out, children. Where are you? I've got caps for each one of you. It was past noon, and the children were back from school. Hearing the familiar song, the children ran out of their homes to greet Ramu Kaka, their favorite cap seller. The children were very fond of him because he told them interesting stories of people he had met in other villages. Moreover, his caps were good and cheap. Ramu Kaka managed to sell a few caps. After entertaining the children with some stories, he decided to move on to another village. On the way, he saw a big tree. Ramu Kaka was tired. He decided to take some rest under this huge shady tree before moving on to the next village. He carefully lowered his basket of caps, and after eating his lunch, he went off to sleep. He wanted to take a short nap. Ramu Kaka did not realize that the tree he had chosen was home to a lot of monkeys. They waited till he had fallen asleep. Then they quietly slid down the tree, opened his basket and helped themselves to a cap each. Pleased with their new possessions, they scampered up the tree, chattering loudly. The monkeys made so much noise that Ramu Kaka woke up and he was shocked to see his basket almost empty. Hearing the loud chattering of the monkeys, he looked up and can you guess what he saw? The monkeys were playing with his caps. He wanted to laugh and cry at the same time. While he was wondering how to get his caps back, he remembered what his grandfather had told him. His grandfather had also faced a similar situation. He too had been a cap seller. And the trick he had played to get his caps back was well known. He grinned. Monkeys like to imitate human beings. He nodded his head knowledgeably. He was sure that he too would get his caps back. Ramu Kaka stood at a place from where he was sure all the monkeys could see him. He confidently picked up a cap from his basket and put it on his head. And sure enough, the monkeys did just that. Then he put his hand on the cap. Looking at the monkeys from the corner of his eye, he was happy to see that all the monkeys too had their hands on their caps. Ramu Kaka then threw the cap down. He waited and waited and waited, but no cap came down. Ramu Kaka was puzzled. After a long time, he looked up, and guess what he saw? Grandfather Monkey was sitting with all the monkeys, and they were all laughing.